Okay. Now, I almost started getting into this on the last video, but I stopped myself from doing it, and I'm happy I did that. Okay, so now let's get into this. Okay, again, let me go through and start it off by saying this. This is day 16 or 17, Occupy Rockford. We outside of City Hall. Indefinitely, based off of the actions of the Rockford Police Department officer Dominic McNeese shooting Tyrus Jones, an unarmed black man, in the back multiple times. We out here in advocacy of the demands of the family being met, and we out here in advocacy of the mayor having a press conference in which he speaks on the continued police brutality that has taken place in the city over the last 5 months, So anyways, I don't mean to say anyways in that manner, but so on to what the specific subject of this video is. I've been trying to speak on specific topics that I wasn't able to speak on since my page have been suspended for like the last 30 days. Let me speak on what a demonstration is. Again, so that way we working from the same standpoints. A demonstration is a form of protest where instead of just coming out and, speaking on how something happening or speaking on why something happening, you come out and you bear witness to something that's happening, right? So at City Market, we was coming out protesting for the first 4 weeks when the police department had yet to start arresting people. We was coming out protesting and speaking out against the police department falsely arresting people on May 30th. We was coming and speaking out against the police department assaulting people on May 30th. We was coming out speaking out against the police department pepper spraying people, punching people, kicking people, tasing people. Okay, we was speaking on how all these things was wrong. And then on July 31st, when they went and did that first roundup at, it's a police officer. Okay, on July 31st, when they did that first roundup on the crosswalk and went and arrested people, they transformed that protest into a demonstration by reenacting multiple things that they did on May 30th, right? So the second that they falsely arrested people with cameras, with all of these cameras filming, while people was only walking on the crosswalk, the second that they did those things, that was a demonstration of things that they did on May 30th. Okay? So from that point on, every other week that came up, it was a demonstration of the things that went on May 30th. See, because one of the things that happened on May 30th, which is one of the things that, Martin Luther King spoke about this specifically. He said when he was talking about why he had to go back to have another march in Memphis, was that one of the marches that took place in Memphis, it was some people threw some bottles and things got out of hand, and a couple of stores got looted or whatever. And the newspapers, as typical fashion, they only covered the looting. They only covered the bottle breaking. They didn't cover the issue that they was out there for. They ain't come and speak out about things that the police department was, they ain't come and speak out against the issues that the labor unions was out there, protesting about and marching about. They only covered the stores getting broken into and the bottle breaking and stuff like that, the violence. And that's what happened on May 30th. The news stations and people talking in the city, nobody talked about the issues that brought people out there to District 1. They only talked about the spray painting on the District 1, talked about the rocks getting thrown. They only talked about the stores that got broken into, or they only talked about the quote-unquote riots that happened, right? They didn't talk about any of the things that brought people out to District 1. They didn't talk about any of the things that brought people who live in those neighborhoods walking out to District 1 enraged and upset. They ain't talk about the things that had people so upset that they was spray painting on a building or throwing rocks at a building, or had people so upset that people allowed these people to spray paint or throw rocks on what should be a building that's there to protect and serve them, right? You know, so like it's something to be said about the fact that that happened. What's the thing that caused those people to feel that way? But that's not what got covered. That wasn't the story. The story was just that happened. So on July 31st, and again, people got assaulted and falsely arrested who had nothing to do with any rocks or any spray painting. I don't think anybody truly on May 30th who got arrested probably had anything to do with any of the things that people attribute to people who got arrested on May 30th, right? But so anyways, on July 31st, when people go get arrested on the crosswalk and people get assaulted on the crosswalk and grabbed on the crosswalk by off-duty officers and plainclothes officers, and while black officers stand by and allow this to happen, right? And it's, you know, cameras there to film this, there's people there to witness this, and no stores get broken into that night, right? Nobody riots and nobody loots at the crosswalk. Nobody threw rocks at the police officers or tried to beat the police officers up. So then all of those things that they used as excuses on May 30th to try to justify the actions of those police officers and say that these are the reasons why this happened. Like, it'll be people that'll tell you, well, it's okay what happened to people on May 30th because people threw rocks at the building, right? It's okay what they did on May 30th because people spray painted this, right? So then what do those people say about what happened on July 31st? Like, people will say, well, you shouldn't have been there on May 30th. You shouldn't have been there once they said you had to leave after the order of dispersal, which still came after people was already initially arrested, right? I stayed after the order of dispersal. It was an unlawful order of dispersal. But what people say is, well, you should have left after that. Okay, so what about the people who got arrested on July 31st when no order of dispersal was given? Right? What we'll say to people is, well, the state's attorney is lying about things that happened on May 30th in a press conference, and people won't believe it because they won't be able to view the whole thing that happened on May 30th. Whereas on July 31st, you can view everything from beginning to end. And then when the state's attorney gets up there and says the order of dispersal was given and lies, and you have video evidence and documentation of no order of dispersal being given, you know, that makes what happened on July 31st become a demonstration. It's a demonstration into the lying nature of the state's attorney. It's a demonstration into the aggression of the police department. It's a demonstration into the lack of restraint of the police department, right? Ooh, it's just that. See what I'm saying? So then every week that followed, right? Every week that followed, things would happen at City Market that happened on May 30th. Kids got pepper sprayed on May 30th, but that wasn't a story because people broke into buildings and people spray painted and people threw rocks, you know, this concept of property over people, right? So that's not a story, these kids getting pepper sprayed. But at City Market, nobody throws no rocks, no buildings get burned, nobody spray paint anything, nothing get robbed or looted. So you can clearly see these kids getting pepper sprayed. And so now that excuse is out the window for you, right? Same thing. I wasn't charged for walking on the crosswalk. I was charged with a felony for mob action, right? Probably one of the most ludicrous charges that has ever happened in this state, right? It's still people going to court now for ludicrous charges for May 30th, for criminal trespass on public property when no order of dispersal was given. Still going to court for this. And it's on camera that the order of dispersal wasn't given. It's videos of when they got arrested on camera, right? They still going to court. And people will say, well, you shouldn't have been there doing that. But they'll still say they support the concept of protesting. So when we go and we walk on the crosswalk and we protest, and again, no buildings get burned, nothing get robbed, nothing get looted, then what's the excuse for arresting me and charging me with this crime? That's excessive, right? At worst, walking on the crosswalk was tickets. At worst. So again, it's a demonstration into, if this is what they'll do over people walking in the crosswalk, what would they do over robberies? What would they do over murders? What would they do over shootings, over police-involved shootings, right? That's the point of the demonstration, is to watch on these same corners. These are these same streets. These are these same corners where these things happen at. These same corners, these same areas. It's important to think to yourself, to really think and to have conversations and dialogues and to figure out how much you want to really be a part of the process of changing stuff. If you have witnessed over these 5 months what they will do over this crosswalk, over this exact action, what they'll do over that action, what do you think they're doing out here on these nights over robberies, over domestics, over speeding tickets, over anything, you know? And that's the point of the demonstration, is to demonstrate the levels to which some of these power structures go to enforce their power and to keep their power intact and to keep people from questioning their power. And so when you would come to city markets, you wouldn't get a speech from people. You wouldn't get a speech from me. You wouldn't get a lineup of speeches. You wouldn't get somebody coming and singing and you wouldn't get that, because that's not what it is. This is a demonstration into what the levels that these officers is willing to stoop to over their power being questioned, right? The same thing. It's about the level that they're willing to stoop to try to keep people from doing something that they don't like. And this ties back into the language too. Some people, when they get pulled over by police officers, they gonna cuss the police officer out. That don't mean the police officer get to beat them, get to hit them, get to arrest them for something they ain't do. You see what I'm saying? And that's what happened down there at City Market. And some people would feel, because they don't, again, back to this language idea, since they don't agree with the language of the protesters, they feel like, well, shouldn't have been talking to them like that. What? Police officer ain't no different than the person who make tacos, the person who deliver your mail, the person who you buy your clothes from. Just because you cuss them out don't mean they get to beat your ass. You cuss at the person who you buying clothes from in Marshalls, they don't get to beat you up. Just because the police officers have force as a part of their job description does not mean that they get to use that force at their discretion, right? And that's an important distinction to make, because what they do is they brainwash you into thinking that since force is something that they have at their discretion, that they get to use it at their discretion, right? And you'll be 50, 60 years old before you start sitting and really thinking to yourself like, wait a minute. Now, I can cuss out the person at McDonald's, and if they spit in my food, ain't nobody gonna ain't nobody gonna say, well, you shouldn't have cussed them out. No, the motherfucker who spit in your food is wrong. They fired. They gotta go. They nasty. You can cuss out the dude at the post office. If he start burning your mail and hiding your mail, ain't nobody gonna be like, well, you know, you shouldn't have cussed them out. No, the dude at the post office is dirty. It's the same thing with police officers. Cussing out a police officer when you get a traffic stop, cussing out a police officer when they come to your house, cussing out a police officer when they asking you questions when you walking on the street, does not entitle them to beat your ass. Does not entitle them to arrest you for something that you didn't do. And that mindset that one thing gives leeway for the other to happen is something that has to get broken, or else this power dynamic is gonna always be off balance. You see what I'm saying? And so I say that to say, even in some of the exchanges and interactions where people were cussing at police officers, or people were maybe what some may use the word antagonizing police officers, right? Even that is a demonstration into the fact that this person who is a public servant cannot allow this 20-year-old protester cussing at them is upsetting them so much that they have to then assault somebody, or then sit on somebody's head, or then pepper spray somebody, or then arrest somebody for something they didn't do. Like, so then what about when they under pressure dealing with somebody they trying to get some answers from about a robbery? What kind of force they gonna use for that if they using this kind of force over somebody walking on the crosswalk? So going back again, a demonstration to the thought pattern and to the behavior pattern of these officers.